Okay, so you've installed the standard PHP stack using Zend Server. Now's a great time to take advantage of the opportunity to go in and look at the Zend Server user interface and see the features that Zend Server brings to your PHP development process. So to do that, I'm just going to hop into a browser. I'm going to check localhost just to make sure that my server was installed correctly. So I installed this on a default Ubuntu 13 clean Linux install. So you can see that Apache is working just fine. Now I'm going to go into 10081 as a port. You can also use 10082 if you're using SSL, but this is just my development box. So you can see the first run experience for Zend Studio for Zend Server. Zend Server is going to ask me to set up passwords for the admin and the developer user accounts, and this is cool because it means that in a production environment, I can have different accounts with different privileges. So for example, I can have the developer be a read-only account in production, so the developer can go in and debug in real time without me having to worry about them making changes if I'm the ops guy. So I'll just add a password for both the administrative user and the developer user. Now we're deploying libraries. You see Zend Framework 2, Zend Gateway, Zend Framework 1. Go ahead and click Next. This will just give us a review. Notice down here it says that the current license edition is the Enterprise Trial. Now, this is something that lots of folks mix. There's only one download for Zend Server, whether you're going to use the free edition or one of the commercial editions. It's the same bits, and the features that are additional in the commercial versions are simply turned on by virtue of the fact that you install a commercial license as opposed to the free Zend Server license. So just one download, one set of bits. So go ahead and click Submit, and this is going to finish the configuration and launch Zend Server. And once it's done that, we're just very quickly going to run through the menus so you can get a quick look at the kinds of features that you can explore in your own installation of Zend Server. Now, one of the cool things here is you notice here on the welcome screen there's an option to install a demo. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it'll take a couple of seconds. This is basically a demo application, and if you're new to Zend Server, it's useful to install it because it'll give you some data that you can look at to see the kinds of results that you'll be able to get from your own applications in the Zend Server user interface. So notice this is just giving me a hint here that a restart is required. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and restart. Just restarting the server so it can detect the application that is in the process of being installed. Just takes a couple of minutes while it's finishing up. If we have a look, there we go. So we're on the overview. You can see here events breakdown, requests per second, average response times, and a whole bunch of events. And this is just the overview page, but we can drill down into each of these. So we can look at system health. It'll tell us about warnings, notices, etc. Active PHP sessions, CPU usage, average memory usage. Some usage statistics. So you see here, what are the operating systems, what are the browsers that are being used, and over here we have what geographies from around the world are my users coming inbound from. So all things that can be really useful information. Mobile versus desktop. So we get mobile usage, how much usage from our application is coming from mobile devices as opposed to conventional desktop browsers. And then mobile statistics. Right, so this will give us some detail about the mobile use. Right. So that's just on overview. So if I go to applications, I can look at the app. We only just have this one deployed, this Zend demo app. If you look at the libraries tab, you can see the libraries that were installed during installation: Zend Framework 2, and Zend Server Gateway. You, of course, can install Symfony or whatever frameworks that you use. But the interesting thing about separating apps from libraries is that libraries are shared. So if I have 6 different applications that use Zend Framework 2, I don't have to bundle Zend Framework 2 with each one of those applications. Each one of those 6 applications can use the shared version of Zend Framework 2. So if I, for example, have to do a patch for a security or performance update, I patch that library in the library, and it propagates to its use throughout the rest of the applications that use that shared library. There's some monitoring rules. Now, these get installed by default, so there are global rules. Right? So things like, firing custom events, database errors, etc. And then there are application-specific ones, and you configure both. You can configure global rules in addition to the ones that are installed by default, and you can also configure application-specific monitoring rules. Also, caching rules. So this is just a simple time-based caching rule. Cache if the URL matches the regex expression for this particular URL. Just by way of an example. And job rules, if you're using a job queue. Job queue is a function that's included in the commercial versions of Zend Server. So you can do timed batch jobs for your server environment. So here are configurations. Here are the components that are installed for Zend Server. We can look at the PHP configuration. Right, so this is a user interface that will allow us to say, hey, I want to turn this on, or look what's loaded, what's not loaded. If you're a Zend Studio user, this lets you configure Zend Studio integration. Some basic code tracing settings, let us enable code tracing or disable code tracing, specify the cleanup period, trigger some actions. And then session clustering. So clustering is supported if you're using one of the commercial versions of Zend Server. In the free edition, it's just assuming a single server. And then under administration, the number of we can enumerate the servers now because if you're using the free version, you just get a single server. But if you're using one of the commercial versions, you can have multiple servers, and those multiple servers can be combined to comprise your cluster. We can specify the audit trail. Right, so it just gives us some audit information about who's done what. And our user administration here, so if we want to change passwords, add users, etc. The keys for the web API, if I'm programming against the web API. Here's the license, and you'll notice that this is just a default install, so by default I get 7 days. And then after that 7 days, I can choose to either extend the enterprise trial for another 21 days, or I can simply get a serial number for the free edition, and I can enter that. General settings, so things like, how many results per page, default server, etc. Notification center changes, audit trail, mail settings if you want to set up mail notifications. Restarting strategy. And then lastly, import-export. So you can get your server all configured, and then you can export that configuration profile so that you can migrate it to another box. You can share it with your other developers on your team, or you can, as you go from development to test QA to staging to production, you can use those that configuration import-export as well. So that's a really quick, like 2-minute tour of some of the stuff that Zend Server adds to the PHP stack that installs with Zend Server. Now that you've installed Zend Server, hopefully you'll have a look at some of these features and give them a try and find out what utility is most useful to you in Zend Server.